Hey everyone, so in about a week we are getting 8.16. It's actually a meta-changing patch, which I thought Riot was supposed to be chilling out with, but apparently not. Let's catch you all up to speed with what to expect, so no matter what role you play, what champion, I think you are going to feel at least a few of these changes. We have some big changes to start with, and to be honest, a lot of these in the video could be in this category, I guess, but I've tried to pick some specific champion shifts that we are going to see. So Yasuo, for example, right? You don't see him as much at the moment because he's banned all the time, but they are going to be increasing his ultimate bonus AD ratio from 150% to 250%. They really must want to see Yasuo permabanned, I guess. Like, Yasuo is not in the best spot at the moment anyway, right? But he's still banned in over 70% of games. Imagine what happens to that when he's actually good. Using 100% more of your AD in that ultimate is bonkers. You will scale even better than before, and remember, it's not just single target. You can hit like an entire team in theory with it. I guess the other side of that argument is you're not going to have it that early into the game. You're not building pure AD anyway to start with, but especially late game, especially later, that wombo effect of having your ultimate and landing it on multiple people is definitely going to be much better. We also have some heal changes. Actually, the cooldown has been lowered from a 270 to 240 seconds, so it's down to a 4-minute cooldown, which is so good. I actually like this because it can still be countered by ignite, so bot lane you don't have to worry too much. That's on a 210-second cooldown, so you've still got like a 30-second window where ignite is going to be up and heal isn't. Adds a bit more safety to the AD carry role though, with all this damage flying around everywhere, and obviously in T-Bites, it pretty much guarantees that mid to late game you will have your heal active and ready for it. Seems like it's not just Yasuo either that they really want to get into the meta. Lee Sin has another round of buffs. They really want to see Lee at Worlds apparently. We're not actually that far away from Worlds now, so these changes will probably feed into the Worlds meta. Like, I doubt they're going to go backwards with them, if that makes sense. So his Q damage, both parts, the first and the second part, have been increased by 20 damage rank 5. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but remember last patch they had a major change to it, so it actually does a lot more damage. It was already a pretty good buff last patch. Basically, we saw him being weaker early game now because his clear speed was a little bit worse with the base damage nerf, but better later. This will help a little bit, not with your early clear, but like as you get into the game, just a tiny bit. And remember, it feeds into the execution damage amp as well because it does increase based on their missing health. Aatrox is another champion that is banned a lot right now because he has the potential to just solo carry a game. We've got a bunch of changes. So firstly, his E. The charges when you first learn that ability have been lowered to 1 from 2. The heal is 15% effective versus non-champions, which was 33% last patch, and his ultimate cooldown will be increased by 20 seconds. Early ranks back to normal rank 3. So the first part of this, the charge thing, they're trying to stop Aatrox cheesing kills in lane early and snowballing with that. If you could double dash onto somebody, it was just a bit too strong basically. So now when you level it up, you only get 1 charge. Second part, you can't heal as much from minions, so trades are going to stick a little bit more. You can't just regen back in and out sustain to win your lane. You actually have to fight if you want to win. The third part with his ultimate, you can't use that to perma-dive people top lane. That's probably the main part of this. Actually, there is a big window with that down where you can try and gank or you can try and fight him, or at least you're a little bit safer. There are 2 more big champion changes that I do want to mention very quickly to start the video. Zoe is another one. Your passive AP ratio and your base damage have been lowered on that, and your W AP ratio is down 15%. So they are still not really touching her one-shot. Maybe a tiny little bit, but not properly at all. You can sleep somebody, you can use your Q afterwards, and it is still there. You're still going to one-shot people, and they're still going to do Zoe things. This is more about the jumping around as cleanup in team fights with all the summoners that have been used and are lying on the ground ready for you to take. Zoe can miss literally every single E and Q, but if there are enough spells, summoner spells to pick up, she can still kill you because she will just jump around like crazy. Lastly in this part, we have Quinn, and this could be nothing, it could be something major. AD per level going from 3 to 2.4. Whenever they mess with like per level stuff, especially with AD carry style champions, it can ruin the champion in literally one patch. But to be fair, it's normally attack speed and not AD that does that. Quinn is so strong at the moment, it might not stay that way. It's not just these changes. We have runes getting nerfed as well, which will affect her. We'll talk about that though in a little bit. Before that, I want to talk about tanks. So not only did we just get AD carry buffs, we're getting assassin nerfs this patch, we're getting tank buffs as well. I swear, please do not make this a slow tank meta again. You'll see what I mean in a second. Sion is going to kick us off. His W is going to give more permanent max health. Just wait until some knobhead tries to run Red Smite Cinderhulk top lane Sion and abuse the new health stacking to just become unkillable. If that works, you are welcome for the tip, by the way, but honestly, he's had a few Q buffs recently anyway, and now he will be tankier on top of that. Amumu is actually getting a buff as well. I don't really remember the last time I had to say that. His E reduced physical damage now scales with 3% of your armor and magic resist. These aren't as big obviously, but they are going to help a little bit, and right now I think the only way to make him work properly is to go a bit of AP and abuse his passive and damage. A lot of you will think the 3% is quite low, which it is, but it is actually just just a flat physical damage reduction, so it's better than it seems. Leona is another one. Her W damage is going to be lowered, but the cooldown lowered as well. Now, these are supposed to be buffs. We don't see a lot of Leona right now, and I'm struggling a little bit to see it. They want you to max W, I think, so they're cutting the damage part off of that, but lowering the cooldown by 4 seconds. So the thing is, with max cooldown reduction, that goes down even more, so maybe they're making her like a beefy-ass tank that gets all this armor and magic resist from her shield for 3 seconds while it's active. These Tom Kent changes are probably the biggest ones. So his Devour cooldown is doubled now, doubled to 28 seconds. 28. That is halved if you use it on an enemy champion to eat them, so it is actually the same as before there. But eating an ally to save them is really not that good anymore at all. There are other stuff here, right, as well, like other buffs and nerfs and tweaks and stuff, but I don't think any of that can really get around only being able to use a basic ability, the main part of his kit, once every 30 seconds. Nautilus is a lot like Leona, actually. It's again a kind of a weird change, but they want him to be a jungler, and they think giving him a shorter shield but being able to use it more often will help with that. Now, that seems like a kind of decent-ish idea, right? But I think you might run out of mana if you spam your shield in a jungle, surely, right? Obviously not with blue buff, but like after that first clear, I think you're going to be in a bit of trouble. Also as well, it is now 13% max health scaling when you max this instead of 17% for that shield. That is a lot of percent health to lose when there are other tanks that survive a bit longer. At least though, the cooldown is lowered by 6 seconds, so if you manage to use this twice instead of just once in a team fight, that's probably worth. Last one is to Ramus. So smaller changes again. I don't even think Ramus is that bad at the moment. Armor stacking in an AD heavy meta, and he can taunt to shut down all these assassins. We're seeing him a bit in career actually, but they're just making his W a little bit more tanky with more armor and more magic resist. Speaking of assassins that we have everywhere, we have these changes that I talked about. Less burst in the game. Electrocute, they are lowering the base. The ratios and the cooldown has been halved. Back to kind of how Thunderlords worked from last season. You can use it a bit more, but it's not going to be doing as much damage. If you try and one-shot somebody, then obviously it's going to be worse, and if you try to chunk someone in the lane phase, it won't do as much either. But if you do use it twice on someone in lane, so abusing the cooldown change, then it might actually work out to just be a little bit better. The main thing is less one-shots, less damage in one full rotation of spells, which definitely makes it worse mid to late. Aerie is the other keystone. The damage is going to start a bit lower now, but end up the same, but the shield is going to start higher and end up the same. So for supports, this is kind of better if you shield or heal at least, right? But for the poke side of things, it's going to be doing a little bit less damage. This is not as harsh as Electrocute, but remember, Aerie technically has no cooldown, just the time it takes to return back to you, so you will be using this a lot more. Scorch is one of the bigger ones as well. Damage halved, but the cooldown has been halved. Similar to Electrocute, right? You can use it more often, but it does less damage. In poke situations, that might be a little bit better if you can use it more. In lane, if you want to constantly hit them, that could be decent as well. But honestly, it is kind of a nerf really, especially if you try to one-shot someone. Considering even late game in team fights, it's only 30 damage now, you might actually want to grab Gathering Storm instead. It's just really not as good. For sudden impact, both the AD and magic penetration has been lowered. So not only are you doing less damage now with all of these other rune changes, but they aren't bypassing as much armor or magic resist. It's kind of like a double screw you actually, and I don't think I really need to go into this one. If you're an assassin, you want pen to nuke people down, that's why everybody takes it. This is why I think it does suck for assassins. That's like 3 rune nerfs already in one single patch, maybe 4 if you're going to count celerity. The AD and AP that you get from that from the move speed has been lowered, and it especially sucks for champions who use the synergy. So like a Sivir or a Hecarim or a Nocturne with his fear move speed, there are a lot of champions who could get some move speed boost from their kit and get more AD or AP. That is where the real nerf is. It's not just to assassins, it's not just to everybody because everybody takes it. It is the synergy part. Finally then, cheap shot. The damage has been lowered early by quite a lot, almost half actually, and then ends up at the same. I don't see why with this one really. It's a hefty nerf for a rune that is completely situational. Like, I like it on Misfortune because you can put your E down and then auto attack for true damage, but it's not that amazing. There are a few other champions actually. So Fizz, for example, this isn't going to be back to before 8.15 levels, by the way. Your WAP ratio is buffed 20%, and this is a 10% nerf. Fizz is insane right now when you max your W, which is what people have started to do. You don't even need to ultimate to kill people. That was the counterplay before, in my opinion, before the mini rework, right? You kind of had to land your ultimate, but now you really don't. I think he'll still be very strong even with those nerfs, but remember, all of the assassin rune changes are going to hit him as well. Talia is getting 3 changes, mainly aimed at the jungle, I think. W is a combo setup though, so you're probably going to have less plays early if that has a high cooldown, or like early to mid game at least, right? Before you rank it up. She has dominated the jungle for quite a while now, so it kind of makes sense, but her ultimate not giving vision, like, I don't know how big that is going to be. It's something I never paid attention to. Like, it might have actually been really helpful. I just didn't really realize at the time. Hecarim is actually getting a few buffs. I'm not sure the celerity nerfs are made up for by these though. though. At least it's something, I guess. Hecarim needs way more help than this, though. Like a bit more AD ratio, base damage as well. He hasn't been meta for a long time. Trundle is another really popular jungler, actually, though. And 40 damage off his Q rank 5 is really high, even if the AD ratio goes up by 20%. I don't see that many Trundle players getting a lot of AD. They go tank. Maybe that is the point. But I guess it kind of feeds into itself as well. It gives you bonus AD for like 5 seconds now instead of 8. But the 20% AP ratio should work with that. Maybe that actually isn't as bad overall. It's a 40 AD rank 5 that it gives you, but then 20% of that is 8, and we lost 40 base, so you're going to need to get a few more AD items and not go tank if you want to equal it out. The last one is kind of weird, actually. Wukong keeps getting nerfs, and he keeps not giving a crap at all. He's still pretty dominant, still a powerhouse with just a few items, even if he's not like completely overpowered. I don't think you normally tend to max your Q first, so you'll be stuck on that 0% AD ratio to start with, and I've actually never seen that before, like a champion start on 0% and then scale up with ranks. So hopefully that catches you up to speed. It's actually a pretty big patch now, and there's going to be a massive meta shift with assassins, with tanks, with loads of other stuff as well coming in. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching until the very end if you're still here, but for now, I'll leave you with the robots.